Good afternoon, everyone. Bob Pompiani, soon to be joined by Missy Matthews. It's a Tomlin Tuesday, so we greet you here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex ahead of a big Sunday. Ravens-Steelers. Need I say more? It's a rivalry that is one of the best in all of sports. The Steelers come into this one in first place, 7-2. The Ravens are 7-3. Both teams, same amount of wins. That's the first time that's happened when they meet since 2010, and both coming off really close games. 28-27 Steelers win down in Washington. Baltimore had to fight off Cincinnati to win 35-34 on a failed two-point conversion by the Bengals. Lots of big plays that we will talk about, and I'm sure Mike Tomlin will talk about as well in that Commanders game. And now the question is, how do you stop Lamar Jackson, who has been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the game this year? A better version of himself, but Mike Tomlin and company have had his number over the years, winning 7 of the last 8. So let's set the stage and send it to Mike Tomlin, who's ready to address the media.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick review of our last performance. Really, I don't know that I got a lot to add other than what I said post-game. It's good to go into an environment against good people and face the adversity associated with that and find ways to secure victory. I just think there's growth in it for individuals. There's growth in it for the collective. Certainly, we got things to clean up in all three phases. We lack fluidity in some instances in all three phases, things that are low-hanging fruit for us as we lean in on this week's work. But largely, I just love the collective mentality of the group, the fight displayed, the way that they were engaged and locked in and really, unflinching throughout. It was a close ball game. Obviously, at one point we were down by 10, but I never felt a lack of belief or a lack of focus individually or collectively. Guys realize how you get out of those circumstances is to make plays. It's the same things really that put you in those circumstances, the lack of playmaking or strategy at times, because coaching is a component of it as well. And we're always willing to own those things and remain focused on the task at hand and the opportunities that are ahead. And I think our guys live that out. And so there's growth in that, obviously, because as we continue through this journey, we're going to be in similar circumstances. We're in a competitive circumstance this week. Can't say enough about the efforts of a lot of people. The new guys have gotten attention, and rightfully so. To provide immediate contribution is a cool thing. I'm excited about watching those guys continuing to grow within our culture and find their space in it, and hopefully that playmaking continues, talking about Mike Williams and Preston Smith specifically. But it was also exciting to get Cam Sutton back, and he played some weighty down football for us and some sub packages and some one-dimensional moments, man, and excited about his role potentially growing and finding his place in it. It was good to have Zach Frazier back. I didn't think he showed a lot of rust, particularly for a guy that doesn't have a great deal of playing experience. And so was pleased with how he got back on the moving train. To just name a few specific instances, Tyler was back in the special teams game. We had some challenging times kind of in October from a player availability standpoint. But when you smile in the face of it and you start to get some of these guys back, it really creates an awesome challenge from a coach's perspective to decide who to utilize and how to divide the labor up. Be remiss if I didn't mention Ben in the special teams game as well. I think he got on that loose punt down the field and was obviously a critical play in the game to minimize the effect of our botched punt fake. And so I'm just appreciative of all the contributions. I thought it was appropriate maybe to acknowledge those in particular because they're new to us, and that was exciting. From a health standpoint, you can characterize Alex Highsmith as out this week, and we'll take it week to week in terms of his availability. Excited about getting him back to us ASAP, but he won't be available this week. But it, makes it even cooler that we have a guy like Preston Smith under those circumstances. Pretty comfortable that Herbig is going to be back this week. He was at the doorstep of it a week ago, so I think it's reasonable to be able to include him and some other guys that have missed some time. We'll just kind of let their participation be our guide in terms of whether or not they get back on the train or not. Guys like Corey Trice, for example. We had some guys that went down in game and didn't return. Dante Jackson, I just walked by. He feels good today, but feeling good today and executing in totality tomorrow is two different things. And so we'll live it day by day in terms of some of those instances, and they might be limited at the early portions of this thing from a prep standpoint, but we're not anticipating a lack of availability kind of in any of those guys, Naj included. We'll see what Wednesday looks like, but we're pretty comfortable as I stand here today that we'll include those guys in our planning at the latter part of the week and have those guys ready for action. Now, obviously, on to Baltimore. It's really cool to be in these games, not because it's them, but because they're a good team. This time of year, you want to be leaning in on five-star matchups and being a component of it. You're in five-star matchups not only because of the quality of people that you're playing, but also what you've done. And we respect that component of it, and we're excited about that component of it. And we just want to continue to sharpen our sword for these battles, to find a way to prepare ourselves and put our best foot forward and find a way to win and search for more. And so for this week, we acknowledge, man, Baltimore is a really good team. And historically, we've had some awesome matchups, man. There's always AFC North ramifications, and I just respect this rivalry. I think one of the awesome components of this rivalry is the continuity in the organizations, man. I've been on my job a long time. Harbs has been on his job a long time. And I think that adds a texture and history to it. And so that's something that is an honor to be a part of. And we're just simply writing the latest chapter this week with some new faces for us and new faces for them as well. Guys get an opportunity to be a component of this thing, and even some guys flipping sides, you know. Guys like Patrick Queen and Moon being on this side of it, just like Arthur Millette a year or so ago, moving to their side of it. But I just think that that's a component of it, man, is intimacy in this relationship. We're highly familiar with their players. They're highly familiar with ours. And when you have that level of familiarity, sometimes guys play on both sides. I think Chris Wormley, for example, is back on their practice squad last time I checked. And so excited about it. I'll start first with their offense. Mr. Jackson, obviously, is at the sticks. He's a challenge. He's a challenge in all circumstances. He's doing a really nice job of spreading the ball around to a variety of people. His tight end tandem is special. Obviously, he and Mark Andrews have had a relationship. They're in the same draft class, and so we watched those guys grow together from afar. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Likely, man, and his development over the last couple of years and his playmaking ability. He caught a big touchdown on us in the red zone as a rookie a couple of years ago, and he's done nothing but advance in terms of his skill set and finding his place in this thing. Zay Flowers is spectacular at wideout, obviously. I'm really familiar with Zay, man. I saw just about every game he played this last year in college because my son was on his team, and, man, his talents are special. His ability to separate, his run after, his competitive spirit, his general playmaking. He can make plays in a lot of ways, and they distribute the ball to him in a lot of ways. Like what I've seen from Bateman, man, he's been down the grass, been a backside matchup guy, made a lot of plays for him. But they got Aguilar, man, they got a deep group. They picked up Deontay. And so Mr. Jackson's got a lot of people to throw to. In terms of the running game, man, that's handled by the two guys that you know are handling it. We got to deal with the big runner and work to minimize his impact on the game in a couple of ways specifically. Not only is he capable of wearing you down over the course of the game because he's a big man and the attrition component of it, but he's also a home run hitter with track speed. And so you got to deal with the wear and tear component of his approach to play, but a bomb can also go off anytime he touches it. He can go 80. And he needs no endorsement from me in that regard to this 2024 video that confirms that. And so We got to be on guard in regards to the run game all day. It's not in any particular moment. It's all day because of his skills and obviously because of the skills of Mr. Jackson. And so excited about the challenge. We faced a significant challenge a week ago, not trying to compare the two, just acknowledging that we face another hot offense with a multi-dimensional quarterback and a really good running game and an offense that's ringing up the scoreboard. And so if I know anything about our group, that fires them up. But it fires them up in the appropriate way. I expect them to be singularly focused on prep. I expect to see a group that's really locked in every prep environment, whether it's classroom or walkthrough or practice. And usually when we do that, we'll position ourselves to be what we desire to be. But there's a lot of moments between now and game time, and I'm really excited about doing it with them. On the defensive side of the ball, it's still Ravens defense, man. They're tops, or if not the top run defense in the league. I know a lot's been written and said about their pass defense, but to be quite honest with you, when I turn the tape on, I don't see negligence. I see a group that's definitively up on people, and a lot of people are getting out of their personalities and are simply somewhat one-dimensional and throwing the ball 40 and 50 times against them. And I think that's probably the most significant reason why they're 32nd in the league versus the pass in terms of yards per game. It's the circumstantial component of it. I don't see guys out of place. They got really good players. At safety, Kyle Hamilton, I think, is playing as good as anybody in the business. Marlon Humphrey, obviously, is a bell cow, not only in terms of his coverage ability, but his ability to get the ball. Man, he's got a reputation. He is the new Peanut Tillman of this generation in terms of taking the ball from people. But again, he needs no endorsement from me. He's got a resume that bears that out. I can think back to 2019. We're in the fifth quarter in a tight ball game with these guys, and we complete a significant over that's probably going to put us in position to win the game. But Marlon comes in with a hammer and dislodges the ball from Juju Smith-Schuster and then recovers it, and they win that game. And so we've seen his exploits for a number of years. Man, they got really talented people. They do a nice job of dividing the labor up. You'll see Hamilton at nickel. You'll see Humphreys at nickel. You'll see Arthur Millette at nickel, depending on the circumstance. They really got really good positional flexibility within some core guys that really make some of the schematics challenging. Roquan Smith, obviously, is a sideline-to-sideline tackle machine, highly productive in any and all circumstances. There's not a defensive package that doesn't include him and what he's capable of. And obviously, they got a group that's really capable of getting out and getting after you up front. They've invested a lot in the acquisition of that group. Oweh and those guys, man, recent draft picks, high-round draft picks, veteran acquisitions like Van Oy. They've even acquired a pass rush specialist in Chuck Smith in recent years. And all of that is really evident on their tape. They're highly skilled and organized in terms of how they distribute their rushmen. They really get after you in one-dimensional passing moments, and we better do a really good job of staying on schedule and working to minimize those moments. And in special teams, obviously, with Harbs' background being in that phase of the game, they've been historically strong in that phase. And when you got specialists like Tuck, that's something to be weighed from a strategy standpoint. His range and accuracy is well documented, and it always has been a factor in terms of how we play certain situations and in terms of how the game plays out. If they want to deny you kickoff return opportunities, obviously he can put the ball in the stands, for example. And so we're highly familiar with them, but, we don't seek or find comfort in that because we know that they're highly familiar with us. It's Steelers, Ravens, and so let's get at it. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, I just want to go back to the fake punt for a minute. Considering where and when you called it, was that as much a attitude center and message center as anything?
No, I was trying to get the first down. But, sidebar, yes. Because, we're just not going to allow people to do unorthodox and potentially unsound things against us. I'm not going to allow people to overstress our punt protection unit by leaving people uncovered. We got people that are capable of throwing and catching the football. We don't view it as a gadget or trick play, to be quite honest with you. That discussion and that work didn't start last week in preparation for the Commanders. It's what we do. It's steeped in our culture. We've been working that since the spring, and so our attitude about it is probably a little bit different than you might think because of that. We're not hoping and wishing. It's nothing mystical. This is routine for us as, a base passing play, a running play, or a base defense. We got that level of comfort in it, but all of that being said, we didn't execute it in that moment, and that's why I took responsibility for it, certainly.
Mike, since you saw him in last October, where have you seen Lamar really evolve as a quarterback?
They'd probably be better equipped to answer that than me personally. I just respect what he's capable of doing. I see continual evolution in him, and I've seen that since they drafted him. There's always a component of his game that's moving forward, and I just think it speaks to not only his talent, but his approach to business and their approach to business. He's got a unique skill set. He and they always appear to be evolving in terms of maximizing that skill set, and I just have a lot of respect for it.
Like you mentioned, Patrick Queen is one of the guys on both sides of this rivalry. Last week against the Commanders, he was all over the place. How has he kind of settled into this defense, and how does he set a tone for that group?
I think it's continual. I think he has shown more comfort with each passing week, and I think his production and consistency of play reflects that. I think it's reasonable to expect that to continue. In terms of his comfortability, he's always been comfortable. He's a guy that's comfortable within his skin. He realizes what we brought him here to do, and he's embraced that in terms of being a leader and hub of communication. Got no issue with that. I just think that over time it's reasonable to expect him to play faster, to see his talent show up more consistently, and him to play with the edge that we appreciate as he gets more comfortable within what it is that we do, how we put plans together, how he marches himself toward a 6 or 7 day preparation cycle. I'm excited about all of that moving forward.
He's talked about wanting to be a villain in this rivalry. How do you see him kind of set the tone with that edge that you just mentioned he has?
He's going to have plenty of opportunity for that, I promise you. There's a lot of villains on both sides of this rivalry.
I'm sorry. When you look at the three different types of catches from George the other day, the touchdown, the sideline one, the slant and run, is that an indication of his versatility and his involvement as a wide receiver?
I don't know about evolution. I think that skill set has been on display since day zero. He's just a very talented guy. He's got unique body control and hand-eye coordination and fine motor skills, and very rarely do you see him uncomfortable spatially. And so we appreciate it, but I don't think anybody on our football team or within our organization that see him do things like that routinely, both in stadium and in practice settings, are surprised by it.
Mike, how quickly do you anticipate Mike Williams getting a larger workload? Obviously, he was acquired in the middle of the week last week, expected a limited snap count. Is there a chance he could see a larger workload?
I think that'll be continual, and I think it's reasonable to expect his workload to increase. The rate in which it increases and all of those things are determined by factors I really don't know the answer to. I'm still getting to know him and how he learns, and specifically the detail component of his skill set in terms of how to best utilize it and position him to help us. And so we'll be evolving in that way. He'll be evolving in that way, not only this week, but in the upcoming weeks. And I think it's, safe to say the same for a guy like Preston. Less so with a guy like Cam Sutton, because we have a shared experience with him in the past.
When it comes to Russell, you made the call last month to bring him in and start him. What parts of his game have come to fruition that you envisioned back then when you made that call that it's like, hey, this is what we expect he'll be able to do in our offense?
I think he's still writing that story. To be quite honest with you, there were a myriad of reasons why I had the posture that I had, his resume being a component of it, his experience, and I thought his experience could be an asset to our unit and our team, and that's played out. His talents, his appetite for big moments, and I think that's played out some, but, there's a myriad of reasons, and I just think it'll be continually revealed because of the circumstances that he and we will be in. And I'm excited about facing those things with him. And I'm excited about him, quite frankly, getting better. He has had an appetite for getting better. Arthur Smith and those guys have done a really good job in terms of challenging him and getting him better. And so there's a get better component of this discussion as well, and one that I'm excited about discovering regarding him. Sometimes, man, you see guys that's been around as long as he has or has the type of resume that he has, they're somewhat resistant to new things or critiques and things of that nature, avenues in which men get better, and he's not resistant to any of those things, and that makes it fun as well.
I know a lot was made out of the unique nature of not seeing the Ravens or any divisional opponent up until now at this point in the schedule. But, you know, now that you've got Russ worked in, the rookie offensive lineman worked in, the trade acquisitions are here. Do you feel like this has actually been beneficial for your team to now get the North with your team fully in place like this?
You know I don't care. I'll play them whenever they schedule us. We got no control over the schedule. Our goal is to beat everybody. But specifically, week to week, we get singularly focused on this week's opponent. And so I'd be making it up if I told you I cared about the schedule or when we face people. I don't.
Mike, I don't believe you mentioned Calvin Austin and the injuries. He fine after the game?
Yeah, I don't anticipate any issue with him. Maybe he's slowed at the early portions of the week. I put him in that category with Dante Jackson. I just failed to mention his name.
How has the addition of Derrick Henry changed how much attention you can afford to put on Lamar Jackson with the mobility and him running?
I think that you can speculate on that. I don't think that you'll really get a feel for that or a texture of that until you get in venue with them. And so I understand the nature of your question. I acknowledge that there's a balance to be struck there. We'll try to strike it from a planning standpoint, but I really feel like that is a field thing. I think that you'll discover that in stadium.
How much is Russell's ability to recognize what defenses are doing pre-snap, whether it's disguises or just things that you guys are opens up parts of your offense that maybe are yielding more results for guys like George?
You know, I think you can lump that into his experience bucket. And that's one of the many points that I was talking about when I was talking there's a myriad of reasons why.
Will Herbig be on a pitch count, and who do you anticipate starting that current practice?
I have no idea. Herbig has not gotten himself fully on in the boat yet, and so I'd be speculating on both ends of that. The level of the pitch count and how we divide the labor up, all of that will be determined after he gets really solid with being an inclusive component of the plan, and we get solid with it as well.
Mike, you clearly have a lot of respect for Lamar Jackson. Just what do you remember about when you learned that he was going to be in this division and you were going to have to play this guy twice a season? I'd be making something up, to be honest with you. He's been in it a while now. I respect the skill set. I wanted to get to know him, not only for us, but just in general. Sometimes when I see talent, forget whether or not we're interested in it, I try to get close to it in the draft process just so I'm not surprised by it. And that's the mentality that I had regarding him. I think maybe we went out to eat the night before his pro day. I was at his pro day. I just wanted to see what that looked like up close. And so that's what I think about when I think about how he came into the league, that I got active in the draft process because I didn't want to be surprised by it. And I remember less about reactions to him going to Baltimore.
Coach, Cam Sutton's first game back, just how would you assess how he did?
I thought he was Cam Sutton, man. I thought he was versatile. We moved him around some. He did a nice job communicating. He was engaged. He was a component of defense and special teams. He's a good teammate.
Mike, you mentioned guys on both sides. What will it be like for you to face Deontay, and what challenge does he present for you guys?
To be honest with you, I hadn't thought a lot about it. He's not on a lot of their video, and so, you know, at this stage of the week, I don't know that I've weighed, you know, what he might mean to the matchup. They got more significant pieces with larger roles that are occupying my attention at this part of the week.
About the history of this rivalry, what do you usually see from guys that are introduced to the rivalry in terms of some of the newer guys on your team?
You know, I challenge people to find their space in it. You know, I think that's the sentiment or the attitude I have regarding the new guys, that these waters run deep and a lot of guys have carved a place out for themselves in the history of this thing. And they've come to us in a variety of ways. I'm sure at some point I'll talk to guys about Isaac Redmond being an undrafted free agent from Bowie. And everybody remembers the significant play he made in the latter portions of a game in Baltimore one time to get us out of a stadium. there's a lot of those stories. You know, guys like Beanie and others, man, need to hear that so they can know that they're capable as well. I think that's what the history of this thing has taught me in terms of how to introduce new guys to it. I just simply tell stories of other regular men who are willing and capable, and how it played out for them.
Mike, Joey got penalized pretty often in the last game. What's your message to him this week? What's your challenge to him?
I don't know that it is a message. We're always working to be clean. Last week was last week. He's done an awesome job for the totality of the season, and so usually it takes two to make a pattern for me before I get active, and so I'm not going to overreact to last week.
Talk about the familiarity between teams. Do you use that as an opportunity to try to maybe zig where you've zagged in the past, or put something different in just because they are so familiar with you?
There'll be a bunch of zigging and zagging on both sides. That's just the nature of this thing. It's a component of that familiarity that I was talking about, certainly.
Your increased ability to hit some deep plays, get some chunk plays of late, especially since Russ has gotten in there. Does one hand wash the other there based in terms of some decision-making you might have on defense to take a little bit more risk, or like you talked about earlier with the fake punt in that circumstance?
No, we're going to take risk on defense and special teams anyway. That's just how we live.
Lamar's such a unique skill set. Does having a guy like Justin Fields on your team help you in any way sort of prepare for all the things?
No.
Anyone else? All right.
All right, thanks.
You know, it's Ravens week when we hear Isaac Red Zone Redmond in the conversation.
That's a good throwback.
That's a good throwback, because I think a lot of new guys are going to look at this rivalry and say, how do I fit in? And I think Mike Tomlin uses those stories to get them going. So it's interesting to hear. And it's interesting to see how many guys have actually made roles for themselves in this rivalry.
I think it's, you know, across the NFL, one of those matchups that everybody knows that happens twice a year. It's always physical. It's always close scoring. Usually it comes down to 4 to 7 points typically. And you always feel it the next week in terms of the players, and especially with the Steelers, who play the Ravens Sunday and then head to Cleveland on Thursday.
It's one of those rivalries too, Missy, where you can talk about some of the best in all of sports just given the history of it. And the number one issue that has to take place before it is a rivalry that people will look to and cherish is the competitive nature. And both sides have been at their best, you know, very small drop-offs. There are always two teams that are going to be battling, whereas some of these other teams in the division haven't been that consistent.
Yeah, I think the stability of them, you have Coach Tomlin, John Harbaugh, they've both been there for a number of years. This will be their 36th meeting against each other, including playoffs, second all-time in NFL history, and just that the fact that they draft to beat the other team. And they're very alike and similar. I know Patrick Queen's probably going to be very excited for this game, being on the other side, but it's always a good matchup. I shouldn't say it should be. It always is.
It always will be, and you can bet it's going to come down to the fourth quarter again, like they seem to always do. But thank you for joining us here on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms. We have more. We'll take a look back at some of the things you may have missed if you tuned in late to the Mike Tomlin press conference, getting set for the Ravens on Sunday afternoon at Acrisure Stadium. We're back in just a moment right here on KDK Plus.
Hi folks, welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor Museum.
Now this is the best era. I couldn't agree more. Those teams were unstoppable.
The teams were really good in the 90s. Come on, you couldn't catch those teams of the 2000s. Literally.
The 70s were the best.
No way, the 2000s.
Whoa, stop fighting. I think every era was pretty sweet.
You said it, kid. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Wait, your T?
Is that how you envisioned your saying hello to Steeler fans?
A little bit. I'll say, you know, I was just thankful for the opportunity, you know, for Russ to just tell me to go over there. You know, he trusts me to go over there, run the route, and put the ball up for me. So, yeah, I think it shows that this week of prep, you know, I was out there, you know, catching good, you know, running some good routes, and, you know, just showing what I'm able to do. And, you know, I got an opportunity to close the game and did that.
How many times did you know before the play the ball was going to you?
I kind of had an idea. It wasn't a line for me to be over there. He told me to go over there. So I kind of had an idea that the ball was going to be up. So I ran the route and just checked the air and caught the ball.
How many times do you think you ran that route with him this week?
None. Yeah, I didn't run it one time.
So that was a rush check at the line of scrimmage. You just changed, basically.
Nah, it wasn't at the line of scrimmage. It was just what we talked about on the sideline. I want you to run this route. I think Calvin went out. He was running that route the whole week. He actually ran it early in the game, but yeah, it was for him, and he was out. So I went in there and made a play.
We see receivers make crazy catches all the time, but it can be a toe here out, or foot there out, or did you know right away the shouldn't hit and you were good?
Oh yeah, for sure. I knew that I wasn't, out of bounds. I felt the leg touch, so I was able to get up and celebrate.
Is that a good first impression for you here, especially with Steelers fans?
Oh yeah, for sure. For me, I just wanted to go out there and just be myself. That's the main thing. Don't overdo things. Don't go out there and press. For me, just whenever the ball come out, make a play. And it came to me one time, and that was one of the biggest plays of the game. So just for me, just come out every day, work hard, and be great.
How did you stay ready? I don't think you played a lot to that point. How did you stay ready?
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
It's really cool to be in these games, not because it's them, but because they're a good team. This time of year, you want to be leaning in on five-star matchups and being a component of it. You're in five-star matchups not only because of the quality of people that you're playing, but also what you've done. And we respect that component of it, and we're excited about that component of it. And we just want to continue to sharpen our sword for these battles, to find a way to prepare ourselves and put our best foot forward and find a way to win.
Welcome back, Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews, and you can bet that a five-star matchup brings up the best Tomlinisms you're going to find, and he used a lot of them there in that game. But it's applicable because this is a rivalry that goes deep. Steelers have had the better of the play so far in the last several games.
Yeah, the Steelers have won 7 of the 8 last meetings that they've had, but during those games, 7 points or less has decided.
And I would expect that to be the same in this game,
No
just
doubt.
because of the way they're playing. But one of the components of it, of course, is this offense with Lamar Jackson. The Steelers have had a lot of success. I think we looked at the numbers, 7 interceptions, 20 sacks over their career. So Mike Tomlin, because he sees it twice a year, understands what he has to do. But this is a better version, I think, of Lamar Jackson. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think Coach talked about that a lot in the press conference, just how much he has evolved each and every year. You add in Derrick Henry, the magnitude of the weapons that he now has, and even mentioning his close relationship with Mark Andrews and seeing an uptick in that in recent weeks, especially in that game last Thursday against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Steelers do know how to play him. Sometimes when you're watching their games, you almost say, like, why didn't that opposing coach call the Steelers? He's 2-4 against Pittsburgh. There's obviously been a number of games where Lamar hasn't started that they faced in recent years, but 2-4 is pretty good when you're talking about a multiple-time league MVP.
Yeah, and he can do so many things with his legs, but he's not necessarily deferring to that, or that's not his first option. He now will wait in the pocket and do some things in there. Still a good rusher, and I think he's on pace, Missy, to have 4,000 passing yards and over 1,000 rushing yards.
That's it?
That's it, and I don't know that that's ever been done before, but he will do it, and we saw it in this Bengals game with one of those crazy runs where he ran 20 yards backwards to get almost a touchdown out of the play. So those are things you can't plan for. You have to be aware, though, when he gets outside the pocket, things can happen and break down.
Yeah, I don't think you can assume that he's going to go out of bounds or fall down. You're going to have to make sure that that happens.
Well, again, this guy like Wallace, they came out of – you wonder how many guys they have. Aguilar's there. Bateman's been good for them. They bring in Deontay Johnson, and I know a lot of people want to talk about him, but he hasn't really been a big part of what they have, mostly because they have a lot of guys playing well ahead of him.
Yeah. Isaiah Likely, he was recently injured, but we mentioned Mark Andrews, also Bateman. There is a number of guys, and that's why when Coach Tomlin was asked about Deontay Johnson, said there's too many other guys that have more snaps on tape that I need to worry about before I can think about what he's going to do. Obviously added a little bit later to the team prior to the trade deadline, but there's a number of guys, and I also think, you know, just what Derrick Henry has been able to do this season has been rather impressive.
It really is, and that's a guy who just keeps on, you know, putting up numbers regardless of his age or regardless of how many times he's been hit. And the one thing about him too, he's just pretty much, you know, out there every game. He does not get injured. He carries the ball a lot. And I think Mike Tomlin made a good point. It's not just him, you know, going between the tackles. You get him outside, and we've seen it already this year. He has multiple runs that are over 50 yards. He can turn it on and go the distance.
My son has him in fantasy, so I'm very well aware of all of his stats every single week and what he's able to do. But, you know, you think of Arthur Smith and the time they spent together in Tennessee. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be picking his brain this week to see if there's anything that he might know that others don't in terms of how to stop Derrick Henry.
Where's Robert Spillane when you need him, right?
Right, yeah,
Maybe
that crazy Tennessee
Patrick
game.
Queen can have some meetings with him.
I think Patrick Queen would enjoy, as Coach Tomlin said, playing one of the many villains that we're probably going to see in matchup 1 of 2 between the Steelers and Ravens this year.
Well, one thing you know about this rivalry, this is the play I was referring to. He's back 20 yards, and you think you have him all pinned in, and all of a sudden, he's almost going to score on this play, and they eventually did score. But that's what he can do that you can't account for. What I was going to say is the one thing about this rivalry, it remains constant year in and year out, is the physicality of it. It's not going to change. I don't care who's on either side of the ball. That's handed down, isn't it, from generation to generation in a rivalry like this.
Yeah, we were talking about Isaac Redmond, somebody that Coach Tomlin brought up as an example, as he said, normal people who do great things in this rivalry that he'll talk to Beanie Bishop and others about. But go back to Terrell Suggs, Ben Roethlisberger. It goes way back, and there's always different villains and different matchups that you can go back to and remember. Maybe good, some bad too.
Well, certainly Hines Ward had a few of those. Ryan Clark had some hits along the way. I can expect that to happen again this Sunday. We'll take a break, come back with more as we look back on Mike Tomlin's press conference. If you missed some of it, we'll play some of it back for you, and we'll discuss right here on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
And the party is on at Acrisure. Oh, my. Absolutely phenomenal. Interception on the pitch to the goal line. Touchdown, Pittsburgh. That's just sensational. I can't even believe that I just saw what I saw. And he's sacked by T.J. Watt. You have to be here.
I think you got to love clutch moments. You know, when you get guys that can make plays and do things for you. You know, first of all, Big Mike over there, just traded for him. You know, he's a tremendous football player. We got GP on the right, Van on the right. You know, those guys. You know, Pat showed up in big ways. I mean, just guys just stepped up in key moments, and just another great moment. You know, when you're playing a game, it's a collection of 75 plays, and you want to see how many great moments you can have. And when we had that one in the key part of the game, obviously.
You've had a lot of, obviously, over your years, satisfying throws, touchdowns, but that seemed to be really satisfying to your reaction after you hit that.
Yeah, every time we win, it's satisfying. You know, that's, you know, it was a big time catch by Mike. You know, I just try to give him a chance, you know, and let him do his thing. You know, as a guy that's had, you know, 3+ 1,000-yard seasons over his career, a guy who's made plays, a guy who's faced some adversity. You know, you love it when guys face adversity and they come through on the other end of it. You know, and, you know, he had a great week of practice. I thought all of our guys had a great week of practice. We battled. We knew this is a really good football team, and they play hard, they play tough throughout the game, and we knew that it was going to come down to the wire, and we made it when we needed it.
How hard to do that with a guy that literally just got here? You've had that little time with, you know, he's had that little time to get into the offense. How difficult is that to pull that off?
You know, I think that when you throw so many footballs and you play with so many different talented guys and everything else, but really, it's a credit to Mike, you know, just studying the film, you know, and understanding all the extra time that we put in this week. Just having confidence in the people around you. That's what makes football so great. You know, we had confidence in the defense to get a huge stop. They did. You know, just guys answering the call. You know, the ability to respond in the midst of adversity is really what's important. And when you can do it as a collective effort, and you do it collectively as a team, and everybody not.
Hi, folks. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor Museum.
Now this is the best era. I couldn't agree more. Those teams were unstoppable.
The teams were really good in the 90s. Come on, you couldn't catch those teams of the 2000s. Literally.
The 70s were the best.
No way, the 2000s.
Whoa, stop fighting. I think every era was pretty sweet.
You said it, kid. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Wait, you're T?
Defense, man, they're tops, or if not the top run defense in the league. I know a lot's been written and said about their pass defense, but to be quite honest with you, when I turn the tape on, I don't see negligence. I see a group that's definitively up on people, and a lot of people are getting out of their personalities and are simply somewhat one-dimensional and throwing the ball 40 and 50 times against them. And I think that's probably the most significant reason why they're 32nd in the league versus the pass in terms of yards per game.
Mike Tomlin talking about the Ravens defense, which has taken some hits down the field in the passing game. As he said, ranked last, but that's a product maybe of teams getting out of their character. However, there have been some blown assignments. I think of that Cleveland game after Kyle Hamilton dropped the what would have been a game-ending interception. The very next play, somehow Cleveland receivers get behind their defense and it ends in a big play against them. So I guess you have to pick your poison here. The Steelers want to have that physical run identity, open up play action. But at the same time, there are going to be some opportunities, I would think, down the field.
Yeah, and I think, you have to see what happens with Kyle Hamilton throughout the week with his health. But Marlon Humphrey, somebody the Steelers know very well. They added Tre'Davious White in the end of the deadline for the trades. He did not play. They played on Thursday night. No way he was going to be up to speed in less than 48 hours. But I'm sure we'll see some of him this weekend, too.
Yeah, so their number 2 rush defense, they do a good job. They're number 4 in sacks. They have 31. Kyle Van Noy is the guy who has most of them. So they still can get after you, and that's going to, again, it depends on, Russell Wilson's ability to escape some of that to open up plays down the field.
Yeah, and I think with the play action and just how Najee Harris has been running the ball of late, both teams are going to want to run the ball, grind out the clock, not let the other team have the football for a chance to get points on the board. So typical Steelers matchup with the Ravens, but it is one that should be good just with the different pieces that each team has added.
Well, and one of the pieces the Steelers have put in the last 3 weeks is Russell Wilson, a quarterback, with those moonshots that we saw. You were down there for that last one. That play still amazes me when I see it because he was going backwards. There was a blitz full force. Number one, did you expect a blitz? Because they're protecting a lead and you don't want to give up a touchdown. So they invited one-on-one coverage with Mike Williams. But what a pass and what a catch. Not an easy catch either.
No, and something he didn't rep in practice at all since arriving in Pittsburgh. It has not even been here a full week as we sit here today. But I just think even the George Pickens one, how he can contort his body and do the crazy things that we see all the time that just defies what you would think is possible for somebody to do. But I just think Mike Williams, there's a reason why they wanted to add that depth at wide receiver. He's a big, tall receiver who is a veteran as well. And I think Russ trusted him enough to move him to that side when Calvin Austin III was out with that injury. And they took a shot and it worked. And I think the one thing that I really noticed on the Steelers sideline is how they all stayed true to their game plan, calm. There wasn't any freaking out. And I think Washington, as a younger team, a hot team, they probably went a little out of their alignment or what they were used to or supposed to be doing in that game because there were just so many mistakes on both sides of the ball, to be fair. But for the Steelers, it just felt like they were all confident somehow, some way they were going to make it work.
Yeah, and they did. And some of these great catches here. That's another perfect throw, and it's well defensed. There's not much you can do if you're Washington in that play other than be there. And here's the one, 3rd and 9. Again, backpedaling, off balance, right on the money. To a guy who hadn't run that all week because he hadn't been here all week. So.
But he did say, just from watching him practice and even, watching a lot of the game, he only played, I think, 8 or 9 snaps. He realized with Russ's balls, you can't look back the moon balls to look at him to see where he's going. You have to look up in the sky. And when you watch that, that's exactly what he did.
Especially you see it from the end zone when he's just, that looks great there, but you see how difficult that throw is to make and put it on the money. And again, 3rd down conversions have been big for the Steelers, and they were in this game. There were several of them. Even the Freiermuth touchdown was a 3rd down play. Baltimore has given up a lot of plays on 3rd down in that regard. So those are kind of interesting matchups to watch ahead of time.
As I said, this is one of those games that you have circled on your calendar, not just because it's finally an AFC North division matchup, but it's the Ravens.
It certainly is, and that means it's going to be a physical game. As I said, we take a look at, the Steelers attacking them. down the field. But up front, that's going to be a challenge. The offensive line, as we circle back to that, is because, we saw Zach Frazier back. I saw a more, what's the word I'm looking for? More involved Mason McCormick in terms of pulling. He was leading the way. In fact, I think it was the Najee Harris touchdown. He was the guy who was in front. Those two guys are young guys, and they're going to be thrown in this. And I would imagine Mike Tomlin would have a talk with them and say, this is your first opportunity in this rivalry. It's going to be a mauling game, and those guys strike me as maulers.
Craig Wolfley calls Zach Frazier the Morgantown mauler, and I think that's fitting. But I think Mason McCormick, go back to training camp wanting to fight everybody and anybody. I think he's going to bring his A game as well. And as you said, just the improvement that a young offensive line with many moving pieces, especially in the beginning of the season, not having Isaac Seumalo has really started to become a strength for the Steelers offense. Yeah, no question. Jaylen Warren is healthy and running the way we saw him last year as well. So there are a lot of good components to this game coming up. It's the Steelers and the Ravens on Sunday afternoon, and we expect a lot of physical play on both sides of the ball. We'll be back to talk more about this rivalry and this game coming up, and also take a look maybe back at some of the big plays in the Washington game. That, to me, was, would you agree, best win of the year, given who you were playing, where you were playing, and down 10 in the third quarter like that. Yeah, I'll take it. You take Got them to their 7th win. Absolutely. We're back in a moment right here on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms.
Hi, folks. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor Museum.
Now this is the best era. I couldn't agree more. Those teams were unstoppable.
The teams were really good in the 90s. Come on, you couldn't catch those teams of the 2000s. Literally.
The 70s were the best.
No way, the 2000s.
Whoa, stop fighting. I think every era was pretty sweet.
You said it, kid. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Wait, your T?
George, which of those catches was more satisfying, the touchdown, the 34-yard slant, or the toe tap on the sideline?
I'll probably say all of them. They all helped the team, get us a victory, so all of them.
What was your reaction when over the years, and I don't know how much you've watched Russ over the years, but, we've seen that pass from him many, many times, and here he did it again on the touchdown to Mike.
Yeah, I'll probably just say, letting the ball loose. That's one of his biggest components of his game. Trusting the receivers, when it's a certain coverage, when you see certain space, front pylon, back pylon, he's going to release it. So his mentality for throwing the ball is for sure superb.
George Russ was just saying your relationship, how quickly it's grown. From your standpoint, why has that grown so quickly?
I'll probably just say repetition, for sure. Throwing after practice, throwing before practice, watching memes, watching films, and, other guys, so we can get our connection, to where it's A1. I'll probably say that's the most thing.
You guys were very aggressive in your approach on offensive end. Did you sense coming in to the game you had to put up some numbers offensively to be able to?
Oh, yeah, for sure. With the offense they had, that's, it's kind of college-based, which is, kind of high potent, a lot of RPO, RPO slants. We knew that we was going to have to put up points for sure.
George, the Steelers bringing another wide receiver to help free you up and to give him another big target. It worked both ways. What was it like for you? How much did it help you to have the presence of Michael Williams?
Oh, it's great, man. He made a big-time play, too. So that's really all I can say.
Did you talk with him during the game to keep him engaged, keep him kind of? He said he wasn't playing a lot to that point. He was trying to stay locked in on the sideline.
Yeah, we knew situationally. I told him situationally, just stay in it, because a guy with his size, fourth down, 2 minutes ago, when it's weighing it down, we're looking for guys like that. So I just told him, stay in it.
What does it say about him that he did make that catch at the most important time?
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
He has shown more comfort with each passing week, and I think his production and consistency of play reflects that. I think it's reasonable to expect that to continue. In terms of his comfortability, he's always been comfortable. He's a guy that's comfortable within his skin. He realizes what we brought him here to do, and he's embraced that in terms of being a leader and hub of communication. Got no issue with that. I just think that over time, it's reasonable to expect him to play faster, to see his talent show up more consistently, and him to play with the edge that we appreciate as he gets more comfortable within what it is that we do.
That's Mike Tomlin talking about Patrick Queen. Very interesting week for him this week because there have been some back and forth, when he first signed here with Ravens members on that defense. So I'll be interested to see just how much he raises his level of game. Over the last several weeks, he seems to have gotten better and better, more comfortable.
Yeah, especially in Washington, 7 tackles led the team, also had 2 tackles for loss. It just felt like he was able to sniff out what they were trying to do with Jaden Daniels. The whole defense, kudos to them, not letting him run more than 5 yards. That's something that other teams had not been able to do and to contain the rookie QB. But I just think Patrick Queen is really good at being the green dot. He's gelled well with all of the known pieces that were on the Steelers defense prior to coming in free agency. And I just still laugh, going back to when Marlon Humphreys tweeted something, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And he was watering his grass holding a glass of water and said, we'll see about that. So we'll see what happens on Sunday, but I think he will be very excited for this one.
Another guy who will be excited, he's always excited, is Cam Hayward. I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk about what he's been able to do. He had 2 sacks. This is when they're obviously aware of TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. In a statistical anomaly, those 2 guys had no tackles in this game, which is weird. He had a sack, Highsmith, before he got injured, or it was a penalty that nullified it. But you don't normally see that stat. But Cam Hayward, Ogunjobi made some plays. I think those guys are very central to this game specifically, and they're going to be man-to-man against guys like Derrick Henry.
Yeah, for Cam Hayward, when he has 2 sacks in a game, the Steelers are 13-1-1. It definitely means something when the captain's getting in there and doing some of the dirty work. But I think, he knows what this rivalry means. He knows what these games can feel like, how they have to be played. I think last year, Coach Tomlin referred to the matchup as Rock'em Sock'em. That's just the physicality you have to bring.
And this is one of those plays. That play right there, Missy, it was interesting. If you look at the slow-mo of it, what he did was he pushed the offensive lineman with one hand, and with the other, he grabbed back and got Daniels all in the same motion, which I mean is a very athletic play.
If Cam needed to prove anymore that the contract this offseason prior to the week 1 was worth it, I think he's done that countless times this season, but just another example of him coming into the clutch. Another
Cam we saw there, number 20, Cam Sutton, got some playing time in this game. And, given the fact that depth is a big issue with all teams this juncture of the season and will be moving forward, I would expect him to ramp up some of his activity in the secondary too.
Yeah, they had to release Terrell Edmonds to make some room. There were a number of other roster moves that went hand in hand with that too. But when Dante Jackson got hurt in game, it was Cam Sutton who took his place. And he's somebody that knows this defense, knows this organization, has played in countless Steelers-Ravens games. It was good to see him back out there, getting reacquainted since it was 8 weeks of not playing in a game.
Yeah, a lot of pressure, and that's what the Steelers expect to bring to Lamar Jackson this week. And we'll see how they plan to defend him. I don't know if you blitz him or wait and zone him. There's a lot of different things they've done over the years that have worked. We'll see what their game plan is this week. You heard Missy mention Dante Jackson. He's part of an injury list. We'll talk about what Mike Tomlin said at the beginning of this Tomlin Tuesday when we come back to wrap it all up here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. We're back in a flash.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
I don't know how many times you've ever been on the other side of Russ Wilson throws like that, but I'm sure you've seen him.
Twice, personally, but to have a quarterback that stepped up in that moment, we're thankful for. Always felt confident in the quarterbacks we've had in the past. But today, he just made some plays that we needed in critical moments.
Mike talked about doing some things that hadn't been done against this team, third down stops, and especially that critical fourth down stop. What did that mean to you guys to be able to come through in this situation?
It's huge. Going into this game, we knew they don't punt the ball often, and that's their calling card. They have an offense that's explosive, that's methodical, that moves down the field, doesn't settle for anything less than a field goal. But when we got off, we felt great about it because we were providing more opportunities for our punt to, create a splash play, and then our punt return to create a splash play, or our offense going down and getting 7.
Cam, you had a couple of sacks, a couple of other linemen had tackles for loss. How do you feel that your group played?
We played good in spots. I think on the goal line run, that's on me. Tried to play 2 different gaps. But I thought we made big, critical plays when we needed to. Keanu, Larry, Preston, TJ, all had a hand in this. Can't say enough about Keanu's QB draw stop, big stop. And then Preston getting the QB sack on McLaurin. But, it's a group of guys that are hungry every day and, come to work with the right mindset.
What does it say about the personality of this team that you guys were able to show that resilience across the board in the fourth quarter?
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
And the party is on at Acrisure. Oh, my. Absolutely phenomenal. Interception on a pitch to the goal line. Touchdown, Pittsburgh. That's just sensational. I can't even believe that I just saw what I saw. And he's sacked by T.J. Watt. You have to be here.
You can characterize Alex Highsmith as out this week, and we'll take it week to week in terms of his availability. Excited about getting him back to us ASAP, but he won't be available this week. But it, makes it even cooler that we have a guy like Preston Smith under those circumstances. Pretty comfortable that Herbig is going to be back this week. He was at the doorstep of it a week ago, so I think it's reasonable to be able to include him and some other guys that have missed some time. We'll just kind of let their participation be our guide.
And Bob, outside linebacker has been the spot where we've seen a number of injuries. This one for Alex Highsmith with his ankle sounds like he's week to week. We know he won't play against the Ravens, but getting Nick Herbig back is huge. And then there is a reason why Preston Smith was added last Tuesday right before the 4 o'clock deadline.
A really good week for Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan to look at those 2 areas of need and fill them with guys who have veteran experience like Preston Smith. And he didn't mention Calvin Austin. He has sort of a twinge.
Yeah, all the in-game guys, Calvin Austin III, Dante Jackson, said that those guys should be good to go. Practice report starts tomorrow.
All right, that's going to do it. Twinge or no twinge, you'll be out there. That's going to do it for us, for Missy Matthews and everyone here. I'm Bob Pompiani. Thanks for joining us on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms. And Sunday is the day. Tune in 11:30 a.m. for our pregame show. Steelers and Ravens, a big day for football, and we'll see you then.